I want to start by saying that I'm out of breath because Matt made me do push-ups before the podcast because he wanted to get a muscle pump before we started moving.
That's definitely how it went down.
Yeah. It doesn't count unless you get a muscle pump first.
Yeah, I really wanted to be sweaty in a long sleeve shirt.
So, Matt, you just cut the sleeves off. That's how you do it.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Doing push-ups are just so great. I was just talking to you about how body weight movements, you can do a bunch of stuff and you can still get a great workout. So people are like, I don't have access to a gym. Well, do stuff at home. So that's why I'm out of breath, because Matt made me do it. All right. What do you got?
I want to start by asking you about the run this past weekend. How did it go, the Wumble Rumble? How did it go? And then kind of significance of, Don Wumble in your life, since that his run was just this past weekend.
Yes. Don Wumble, the Wumble Rumble. It's generally around Thanksgiving so that more people can come back and visit. And it's put on by Coach Rodriguez or Anthony Rodriguez. Don Wumble was a mentor of Coach Rodriguez. And Coach Rodriguez, in his honor, and the Michael David Sports Foundation puts on this event to put money back into Lodi Track Club, Lodi Track. They do a lot of great work with the youth in the area. And so the Wumble Rumble kind of keeps this tradition alive of giving back to the youth. It went really well. I think they had 250 people sign up. It always rains on Wumble Rumble. I love running in the rain, but some people don't necessarily like that. But I think it went tremendous. There's a 5K and a 10K. And before that, they have a half mile and a full mile for the kids. So it's very kid-friendly. Lots of kids do it. And you go and they get a bib and actually gets their time. And it's really cool for that event. We had a couple of sharks go out there. And for me, it's like a family reunion because Don Wumble was my great uncle. And so I get to see a bunch of family members go back and kind of run my home course. I probably run around the lake, I don't know, thousands of times. And so for me, it's kind of fun and to kind of see everybody out there and getting after it. And I would really like to see more people there. That's just selfishly because I think it's such a great event. I think more people could come. So
what does it benefit? Who puts it on?
The Lodi Track Club. Coach Rodriguez has a Lodi Track Club, and it's put on by the Michael David Sports Foundation. So they raise money. It's a nonprofit, and that money goes into there, so it will support kids moving. And so they really do a good job of, they donated money to our Junior Land Sharks race. They donate money to Got Kids. That's allocated for kids in movement. Dave Phillips, Coach Rodriguez, Greg Wright, all those gentlemen really want to see the running community thrive. And so they invest a lot of their time and money back into the students. And then hopefully that will kind of bring up these really cool runners that go into high school at Lodi or at Tokay because they want to kind of bring up the running community. They're big mentors of mine. I don't know if they know that I look up to them a lot, but they do that, and I'm trying to follow in their footsteps and kind of do that for those people and the kids and then give back to the community.
Coach Wumble, was he a good mentor for you as well?
Yeah, so he was, when I was in high school, he passed away when I was in high school, or just out of high school. And he was my shot put and discus coach, and he was the spokesperson for the underdog. So Coach Wumble, I went and recently had a meeting with another foundation, and in that meeting they said, and they were older generation, they were probably a generation ahead of us, and they said, Coach Wumble was my coach, and Lou Wumble and Don Wumble took me to Europe, and these people were in their 50s and 60s, and so it's really cool that they have this almost 3-generation legacy, and so he's been doing a lot, and for me he was a mentor because he kind of showcased the seeing the potential in people that don't necessarily look like runners. So he might see someone that got cut from the soccer team, and he would say, hey, you know what? You might have gotten cut from the soccer team, but you can come run for the cross country or the track team, and you can excel. And there's lots of scholarships and funds for kids that run, and so they're trying to bring to light that for these people that are maybe not as privileged to get into these schools, and they can use running as a way to get an education. And so it's a really cool way for them to do that. And Don Wumble was a big spokesman of that. He was a wrestling coach, a football coach. He's coached everything. He was a PE. He, at the age of 65 or 70, was doing one of those poles where you hold onto the pole and make his body a flag up until his 70s. He's just a solid, all-around nice guy that kind of made sure that everyone, and his question was, did you PR today? And so if you PR today, that's kind of all that matters. With running, it's really cool because you and I can go running. You might be faster than me, but I could PR today and still see a benefit even though you won the race. So that's what we're trying to drive into these kids, is that it's what you put into it is what you get out of it. So running for me is like you work and you get the output. That's just pretty simple.
It's kind of a good question to ask yourself every day. Did you PR today?
Yes. That's on his shirt. That's on his everything. It's like, hey, did you get a PR today? Good. It doesn't matter if you won the race or got first or third or last. It's like, oh, you PR'd, but you still got last place? Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of cool about running with the Junior Land Sharks program. We're trying to implement that, is that you're not competing against the best, you're competing against yourself, and that's in life. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think by developing a love for running in high school, it's got to be beneficial down in the future because you have something to hold on to. Right?
Well, I think running is probably the thing you can do the longest. Some people will disagree with that, but I believe that running is a skill that you can do into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. There's just a gentleman in his 80s at the race who's still moving along, and I ran into him into the restroom before the race, and I see him at all the local races. He runs every local race, and he runs it. And he says, I said, hey, I think it's really cool. It's awesome. I love seeing you at these races. And I said, I forgot what I asked him, but I asked him a question, and he says, it's nothing big. It's what God gave me the gift to do, so I'm just using my body as God gave it to me. And I was like, that's such a good answer. So we have a lot to learn in our young life that we have.
We're getting old.
I mean, we're getting old, but there's still people that are way older that know way more than we will and ever will. But how cool is that we get to live a life where we're continuously learning new things. And so I think when we think that we all have it all figured out is when it's time to head out of this place.
Okay. Well said. Did you PR today? That's just, it applies to everything in life. Like, did you give your best? Did you do the best you possibly could? Did you do that today?
Yeah.
You can ask yourself that question.
I think you can do that every night. And it kind of goes back. Also in football, I had another really good coach. We had Coach Dillon, but then I had Coach Bishop, which was my lineman coach. And he would, every year, he would read the Man in the Mirror poem. And so for me, I look at myself at night, and I look at myself in the mirror, and I say, hey, I did everything that I could today. That'd make me better. And so I try to do that, and I can look myself in the mirror, and that's all that really matters. No matter what else is judgment's going on, as long as I can look myself in the eye and my reflection, then that's all I can go off of. He would always say, like, if win or lose at the end of the game, if you can look at yourself and gave your best, that's all I ask of you. I don't ask of you to win every game. I ask for you to do your part, your job, to the best of your ability. And if you do that, then I'm happy. And you should be happy with yourself too. So I think that's another.
Is that like a mark of good coaches is majority of the benefit that they have is between the ears? Like what percentage of, would you say mentally is the coaching you do? What percentage of that is like mentally developing people?
80.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with my athletes because he and I were trying to establish, he's, I would say, the next tier of athlete, because I have athletes that kind of go through and there's a huge potential for them. And then you get this solid base for them, and then you go to this next level. And then above that level is kind of that peak performance stuff. And so you and I aren't even in the peak performance area. We're like well below the peak performance area, but there are people that have their sleep, their nutrition, everything dialed in, and then they're looking for that 1% to 2% increase. And that might be like the perfect programming, the perfect this, the perfect that. But then if you have like 98% of the population, you can do the biggest bang by just following a program, no matter what program it is. You could write a program, I could write a program. As long as they follow it and they stay healthy, they're going to see increase or a better result than they would. And so for me, it's really just making sure that they stay consistent and committed to it is the best thing you can do. And as a coach, that's your job. It's to see how can I keep them entertained. It's for kids. It's like running isn't fun, but if I can make it a game or write a workout that keeps them entertained for that 30 minutes, that's way better than them running perfectly split 200s or 150 splits or with a 30-second rest, all that stuff. So I would say that. But a mark of a good coach doesn't necessarily mean, or a mental note from a coach doesn't make them a good coach. And that goes with other bosses and captains and lieutenants and chiefs, and you can learn a lot from a really bad captain or a really bad coach because you learn what not to do. And so I learned my old job, I learned a lot from the really good ones, and I learned just as much from the bad ones, but it wasn't like in a positive way. It was like I learned what not to do and what not to be like, but I got to see it in a light. And so I kind of use that to make better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm still pumped from those push-ups, dude. Man. Maybe too many.
Do you think Coach Womble, because in high school you're dealing with a lot in your head emotionally. Do you think he ever saw running as a good outlet for this for high school kids, and kind of in general, like how do you feel about training as a way of helping with whatever emotional state you're going through?
I don't necessarily know if it's just running. I think Coach Womble saw it in all sports. And you kind of noticed that we went and touched on a couple of things. Like I got a lesson from track and field. I got a lesson from baseball. I got a lesson from football. I got a lesson from long distance running. I got a lesson from whatever other sport you want to do. Movement is medicine. And in doing it, you're going to see a mental benefit, like scientifically proven. You can have almost the same results with antidepressants as you can as if you kind of move and physically move and do these things. Obviously, there's different levels and there's chemical imbalances and all these things. And I'm not a doctor, so I can't say this, but I have read studies in defense of getting more kids moving. And I think it's an epidemic, if that's the right word, of what we have going on right now in society, where we don't have enough people moving, that we're seeing a mental health crisis. And I think we can fix it without prescription. We can fix it without doctor's office, and we can fix it by getting kids moving and playing and getting back into sports. I know not all people are into sports. People into band, people into drama, people into other things. I was just running around the track with one of my clients, and as we were running around, I looked, and there was 12 people playing their instruments on the infield of the football, or in the track. And I said, "No, man, that's like they must be doing some specialty." He goes, "No, that's a whole band." I go, "What? There's only like 12 members for the band?" And he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Dude, I used to go out there. There used to be like 40 or 50 members of the band." And it's not just sports. It's getting people moving and busy, because like idle minds make mistakes. And a prime example of, I took my kids to Rick's Pizza. And then after Rick's Pizza, we went over and we kind of walked by Baskin Robbins, and that's where all these kids were hanging out. And there's a bunch of trash. They were yelling and screaming and like yelling and getting in fights. And my kids, they didn't feel safe there. So I was like, just kind of watching and monitoring it. And I was like, man, I don't remember doing this in high school. Was I like this, or were there these kids? And I was like, I was in sports. Like I didn't have time to do this. So if it's not sports, it could be a club. It could be reading. It could be political science. It could be whatever. Keep kids busy, because when you're not keeping your mind entertained, you're going to be doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. And so for me, I enjoy running, and I enjoy movement. I enjoy working out. So that's my outlet. But there's other outlets for people that enjoy drama, band, instruments, choir, debate, all these things. So I don't just prioritize movement. I do think that there's a huge health benefit with movement, and all those people in choir and drama and political science and this stuff could benefit from going on walks, moving, exercising, all that stuff. But
yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think there is something unique about movement. So as someone who's doing music, very amateur level, but there's something unique actually about the physical, and in a way that it kind of can prime you mentally. So if you're going through any kind of situation that you feel overwhelmed, or going through any kind of serious issues in your life, I think you can really kind of get yourself moving in a positive direction again with the physical. And for me, one great way of doing that is the structure workouts in here. Because not only are you getting the community and you're able to kind of be around guys, but you're also getting the movement part of it. And I think that having it to look forward to, it's on the calendar. You have accountability there to be there. You can't blow it off. You can't make excuses. I think the structure workout's crucial. And I was doing the workout you had for me last night because I couldn't make it
How you feeling
on this
after
unique
that one?
workout.
Yeah.
And I noticed a difference doing it at home without mostly the accountability of other people, the coach there as well. But that's a really big benefit of this place, in this gym where we are, the Land Sharks Movement Company training facility.
Look at that. There it is.
A huge benefit is having the structured workout here with the accountability of other people.
So there's three things that you said there, a lot of awesome stuff. The first thing I want to kind of touch in is you said this gym. This gym's great. Obviously, I'm going to say my gym over any other gym because I'm here and you're going to invest back into me. But I think any gym, if it's a gym across town, if it's a pickup game of basketball, because that's what you might be into, if it's In Shape, whatever gym or group that you get along with that's going to keep you moving consistently, I think is really good. You really enjoyed here because you have like-minded people that you associate with outside of here. So it's kind of nice to have that networking and that accountability with people that are like-minded like you. So if you can find a space, if that's a running club, if that's a yoga studio, if that's like a meathead gym or whatever, a Globo gym as they say, go there, do that. You're going to be healthier and you're going to do it longer for a longer period of time. The next thing is you said coming in here and having a structured workout. So I hear a lot from people. It's like, why don't I just go to InShape? I said, that's great. You could go to InShape. I said, but you go to InShape, you kind of do a couple things. You might follow a plan, but you're kind of like haphazardly doing it. You're not being held to the same standard that you would be as if you were being monitored. Or when you're kind of fatigued and you start doing things a little bit inappropriate, you might need that extra eye to be like, hey, let's move your elbows inward so we're actually hitting the tricep, not our shoulders or something like that. Or kind of just another watchful eye, or people that are doing the same thing in a smaller, intimate setting. So that's the second one. The third
That's
one.
not BS, by the way. That's not some BS sales pitch.
No, I know.
I was experiencing that last night.
Yeah, I think you don't get it unless you're like in here and see a difference, because people in Shape, you convince them of that and tell them that, it doesn't make the same sense until they come in and see it. And so that's why I always say, like, hey, come in for free. Come work out with us. Let me know. We'll have you sign a waiver and you come in and work out and that's it. Like, you have nothing to lose besides a good workout. I know plenty of gyms that do that. I know a gym across the street that will give you a whole week for free. And they'll want you to come in and try it out for a week so you get a good feel of the people, different classes, different times, because each kind of class has different people. So if you're an early morning person, try out the 5 a.m. class. If you're an afternoon person, try out the afternoon class. They're completely different people. So you need to try out different levels, because you can go to the 5 a.m. and be like, ooh, I don't like these people. You can go to the 5 p.m. and be like, ooh, these people are not right. Oh, the noon class is perfect for me, because those are people that are working. They're doing their lunch break. They're here. They're doing it. So try out different times, different types, different places. Just that's my advice for everybody. The last thing I want to touch on is kind of the first thing you said, is that like movement like kind of helps your mind go through. And there's a book you and I both read, Peak Performance, and in that book it talks about walking or doing something where you're not having to actually think about the movement. So let's say maybe it's some people, it's like a slow jog, or it's walking, or it might be rowing or skiing, or doing something where just your body's in motion, but you're not necessarily thinking about doing it. That's when your mind is free. So you have the ability to really zone into your thoughts. And some people might say the demons or the things going on in your head, when you can do that appropriately. And so I advise that to everyone. So for me, yesterday I took 2 walks. There's a mile loop around here. It takes us 14 minutes and 38 seconds. If I walk around this, and I guess it's 0.8 miles. Yeah. And we walk. And so when we were stressed out doing I'm currently doing something with my phone that I want to tell you about, that I think everyone should do if they have the ability. And then I got stressed out because everything backfired on me. And so I was like, man, I just need to get away. So I went away, and then I did that walk, and it kind of cleared my mind. So do those things, do movement. In here, when you have a gym that's like written up on the board, a workout, it's like the chicken scratch that I have, it allows you to come in and just do it and move and get the benefit of it without having to think. So when you don't have to think about something, you just go. I think that's a benefit. It's a lot of stuff.
That's good. So sometimes like when you're doing those walks, one thing you left out of there is like leave the headphones.
Yeah.
Sometimes leave the headphones.
And the sunglasses. Like, I think it's great. I think we need to look or just see, because Kiera was talking about how her eyes, she has really sensitive eyes, and she wears contacts and then eye lenses, and when she doesn't wear contacts and her eyes get super hit with light and then it hurts, and like that does not sound fun at all. Like, I'm very thankful that I ate a lot of carrots as a kid. I'm just kidding. I didn't eat any carrots. But I have eagle vision, like top notch. And because of that, I like going out and kind of just, I don't know, looking at light. Or don't look at the sun, but just get outside. Like, let that happen. And like you said, with no music is no distraction. I a lot of times will put headphones in and then go for a walk because I'm listening to a podcast or listening to that or doing whatever. But really, I need to just sit there and think. And I will use it as, if you believe in God, or if you don't believe in God, or if you believe in a higher power, karma, Buddha, I don't know, all the other religions there are, whatever you're talking to or thinking about, if you just kind of put those thoughts out in the air, that's when you're really just going to get some kind of feedback. And so there's no better time than to call it O2 cocktails. Andrea calls it. Just go on walks. So
is that how you deal with your emotions?
No,
and control your emotions.
I bottle it up inside and then explode like a teapot.
So you do a bad job.
I do a terrible job. Are you trying to segue into the emotion part?
I thought it might flow.
That was a good flow, dude. That is a way that I deal with my emotions. I think about the way that I'm reacted in situations and try to find, I guess, trigger points that led me to that point. So when I get super aggressive or loud or to the point of uncontrol, that's usually not the cause of it. There was something prior to it that got me to that point. So I like to backtrack. So I think about that. I'm like, okay, that happened. I lost it, but that was just the tip of the iceberg or the straw that broke the camel's back. So what led up to that? And I think you need to go to a shrink or a mental therapist to figure out exactly what happened, which is I'm figuring out, which I need to do. Go see somebody to talk about these things, because I think it's ingrained in us from childhood, from a long time ago, and then you just have these tics. So I'm trying to figure it out by reading books, having conversations, doing these things, and kind of going in that route.
Yeah, this book, he says, ask probing questions.
Jason Kimmel at our we have a little men's group / Bible study. It's really just a time for us to get together and ask tough questions and kind of get back to each other. So if anyone's interested in that, let us know. We have a small group. We meet here on Wednesdays, and we're really excited. We have great conversations. We're all dads. We're all married or have been married. Yeah. And we talk about how much we love our wives, talk about how much we love our kids, and we talk about the struggles that come with that, and just like owning a business or working a job. So I think it's really beneficial. But Jason came in and we were kind of asking for advice on stuff, and one of his things was he had this book that he bought because he thought it was very business worthy, and then it ended up being a religious / business, and it helped out in a lot of ways. And kind of what you said, what'd you call it?
He said, ask probing questions. That was the way he said it. Yeah. So that way you can kind of find those. You said the trigger points, so find the trigger points.
Yeah, and so when you notice, I forgot exactly what he said, but one of the things that he was talking about was he calls it a lie to yourself. And in that lie to yourself is generally going to be a problem. So when you have a problem, you're thinking, let's just say, for me, it's like, let's say eating sugar. So my problem is eating, like emotional eater. Like I eat when I get stressed, or I eat whatever. And so it's like, okay, I'm telling myself a lie that when I eat that brownie that my wife's mom made, that's like super good and has chocolate chips in it, but it's like still not cooked all the way, so it's kind of gooey. It's like the best thing ever. Like that feeling that I get of stress relief from that brownie is probably from existing conditions as a kid of like maybe my maybe when I fell and I got hurt or something, my mom or dad gave me like a fruit roll-up. My dad worked at General Mills. I'm trying to think of or maybe that's what happened. Or maybe it's the fact that when I, just myself, not blaming it on other people, but when I eat something, it makes me feel good. Or when I get sad, I eat some ice cream. I'm like, that relieves that stress. And suffering, or long-term suffering as patients, is when we try to eat something to make us feel better, and when we do that small thing to make us feel good in that moment, if we would have prolonged that, so I guess being patient with it and kind of gone through the process of not doing it, we would have felt better in the long run. So I think that discipline to me is just putting on what's it called, delayed gratification. So like not doing that for those reasons. In this book it talks about going shopping, or he was very financially savvy. And so he was like, hey, I'm going to use all my money in case this happens, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to have it. And all those emotions were wearing off on his kids. And so his kids started being like that. So what his grandma did to him, he was doing to his kids. And so he had to stop the thing. So I thought it was really cool.
Well, the metaphor he uses, which is something we've actually talked about before, is your brain has these ruts that's been established in your mind.
You use this, Matt.
And this goes to something you preach of, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because the key is you can create new ruts, new trenches, but it's going to feel uncomfortable and awkward until you do. And so this is where your mentality of constantly embracing those situations, because those situations are going to create new ruts as long as they're good.
Yeah, I think that in the example he uses in Alaska, there's this rut that once you get in the rut, you got to pick, hopefully it's a good rut because you're going to be in it for 60 miles. And so you can choose the ruts that you go into, and then your mind develops this pattern through your neurons. I don't know, way above my brain level, but the synapse, all this stuff that goes on. And so it's okay. I developed this pattern. I developed this rut, and now I continue to go through it. So you might as well choose a good one. You don't want it to be like the candy thing or the purchasing stuff, because then it's like, okay, I'm reaffirming that rut, and now I'm going to continue to do that. And all of a sudden you get to the end of this little rut and you're $60,000 in debt, and you're like, holy cow, what happened? It's like, oh, I kept buying stuff because I was sad, because I thought that things would make me happy, when ultimately it was a reflection in the mirror. You be happy with yourself before you can be happy with other things. So I think it's really cool. And you use that in a very smart way. You've talked about it, about the folds in your brain and all that stuff. So I thought that was pretty, it reminded me of you. There's a couple of things in there. What I found out, a lot of these conversations, we've been going to these sermons, I've been going to different churches, we've been reading these books. A lot of them have the same kind of theme, and we talk about them here. And when we talk about them here, we get the ability to kind of run through these things. So I think it's super important to read books, read things, but then have the conversation with people so that you can like regrain your own rut and be like, maybe you or I am on this rut, and you can be like, hey dude, get out of that rut.
Conversations. He keeps coming back to the same thing.
Yes.
Like, you got it. And that's, you kind of talk about our group on Wednesday nights. It's just, I think it's crucial. Absolutely crucial. You got to get around people, but you have to invest it. That's not going to magically happen. Those people aren't just going to be there when you go through hard times. You have to invest. You have to be there. Like when they're going through hard stuff, you have to pull this stuff out of them, because people are not going to feel comfortable like just opening up randomly. So you got to pull it out of them. You have to invest in those relationships.
I think, so pull it out of them, I think is really good. But what I've noticed, and I think it's leading by example. So I've noticed from an outsider's perspective, I talk a lot. So I try to sometimes not talk as much so that I can listen. And one thing I did last week is I was able to kind of sit back, and you took the wheel of the group. And I was listening to other people's responses, trying not to even respond. And when someone leads by example and shows vulnerability and shows a little bit of suffering and is willing to kind of put their heart out there, then it's like the next person next to you feels like, oh, okay, I can do that. So you need to have the ability, a space that you feel comfortable where you can be brave or be vulnerable and have those conversations, because you have to drop your wall down a little bit so you can go in there. But I think sometimes people don't drop their wall until someone else does it. And so I try to drop my wall as much as possible so that I can just information, and so people feel comfortable to do the same thing, because I don't want anyone to not say something because they're afraid to say it. I'd rather them get it out, and then we can kind of go through it and air out your dirty laundry together and kind of like wade through it together.
Yeah, that was inspired by a music verse. Why do I feel so broken? I wish people were more open. So the idea is that, you know, you have the stuff inside you, and sometimes you feel like you're the only one that's in this position, especially when your only lens to the world is through Instagram and some of these other places where everyone's got to figure it out. And so I thought that was cool. That verse kind of inspired that by being vulnerable and open, you're breaking down barriers to other people and making them realize that the stuff they're going through, they're not the only one, and then they can do the same. It kind of has this carry-on effect for other people.
I think that's great. What you said is you're not the only one going through these things. There's a big part of me where I was super selfish or super thought that I was the only person going through hard times or the only person doing something, and you're not. There's so many people going through the same thing, and you're just trying to wade through the water or the tides, and surround yourself with people that are like-minded where you can kind of do that thing. You just said Instagram, and I just want to stop for a second and talk about
Let's do it.
Instagram for a second. A couple things. Kids and social media. So Kiara, my wonderful wife, she's going to be on this podcast in 2 weeks, probably, talking about financial stuff. So buckle up, buttercups, because that's going to be a fun one for everyone, and I really advise everyone to listen to that one when it does come out. The next thing is we talk about, she also wants to be on one. She has all these ideas now that she wants to be on our podcast, which I think is great. She would add so much, not validity. I don't even know what the validity means. What does validity mean? Valid? Yeah. She would make it legit because she has so much insight. Yeah. But she went to a course at our school, a sheriff or someone who investigates children in the internet and pedophiles and all that stuff, and about social media, and she went to this course, and in there they were asking this kid, okay, go through this whole spiel. Like since COVID, it went from 24% to 54%. I don't know the numbers. I wasn't there. I was with the kids. It's gone up. Like the people have been using it. They're on social media, and these people are being contacted by pedophiles, blah, blah, blah. And the only way that you can get away from doing that is to not let your kids on cell phones and social media. And so all the people were raising their hands like, okay, so when is it okay? At what age can your kids go on a phone and social media? And he goes, never. Don't give your kids social media. Don't give your kids a phone. I and you grew up without an era with a phone. I get it. Like I don't have kids in high school, so there's gonna be some parents like, oh, just wait till when his kids are in high school. I get it. Like he says, if you want to, give your kids a phone and have it just be for phone calls, or you have a phone and when they leave somewhere, you just give it to them. They're like, well, what about at school? It's like they have phones at school. They have the ability to call. Like, what is going to happen? What are you going to do by having their phone and doing this stuff? And I'm hesitant to do this stuff because I'm not in those shoes, and I've shot myself in the foot so many times with my older sisters and my siblings about how to raise kids, and then I get to the age that their kids were when I was telling them that they were doing it wrong or whatever, and they're like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, you're right, I'm sorry. This is something that I know that my wife and I are on the same page with, and it's our kids in social media, it's our kids in phones. There's nothing good that comes from social media. Nothing. Absolutely nothing that comes from social media that is good. And so when
the problem is, because I'm trying to figure out an interesting way to push back. Someone who's like lived in a cave for 8 years without social media at least. I'm trying to push back. The problem is the good that comes from social media is like interlaced with all the negative, and it's like you can't separate the two.
What's
as much
good?
as you try to.
For a kid, an 17-year-old,
Not for a kid. No, I'm sorry, I got no counter argument for you.
Okay, your kid, let's say, I'm going to give you the counter argument. The one is that I hear a lot is like, hey, my kids, as a parent, I am socially outcasting my child by them not, they're the only ones that do not have a phone and a social, that's how they communicate. That's how the technical ages come about. Cool. Read the text messages. Read what that community that your child is not involved in is talking about, and then tell me that you want your kid to be a part of that. Why don't we as parents come up, this is not my idea, this is Kiara's idea, so I can't say this. Why don't we come up with a group of parents that don't let their kids have cell phones, and then our kids hang out with each other, so then our kids are not the ones that have cell phones are the outcasts.
Yeah, that's the Amish.
Yeah, well, the Amish have it right, because this is ridiculous. Like, you can't go anywhere. There's 10-year-olds, and people that are listening to this, their kids probably have phones, and I'm sorry. Like, I don't agree with it, and that's we can disagree and agree and whatever you want to do, but I will take a stance. Kids should not have phones. Have a watch. Do you know who can also track your kids that have a phone? Pedophiles. Do you know who also can track your kids? People that are looking to do bad things to your kids. They can do that to us. Police officers, great. You know where your kids are, fantastic. Where else are they going besides school? Like, I used to lie to my parents. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. I used to say, oh, I'm going to Graham Christie's house. I'd park my car at Graham Christie's house. Sorry, Graham Christie's parents. Then I would drive to Ryan Sheen's house. I'm not using their last names. And then we'd be hanging out at Ryan Sheen. We weren't doing anything, or we were doing stuff bad, but that was it. Like, that was the spot. My parents were very smart. They would go and they would see that our cars are certain places. And my sisters, and they have some of their children have phones, and they put trackers on their phones. That's great. I think they know exactly where they are. They know where they're driving home. Give them a phone that they can drive to and from this place. Have access. Make it fully open. Make it an unlocked journal. So if they have a phone, they know that the rights are absolutely zero. And I'm going to look through it. I'm going to look at their messages. I'm going to look at all these things. I remember there was a phone. We had a family phone. And because I was at the age of Nokia and Snake, the little thing we had to like click through.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had one when I drove. I got one when I was 16 or 17.
Yep.
And so I got it when I was going to school, back to school, and that was it. But I used to text. I text a lot. And my mom, this was before it was like unlimited stuff, would hand me the phone bill,
Yep.
put it on the thing and be like, hey, here's 5,000 text messages. And that cost however much cents per text message. We can't afford that. I was like, oh, yeah, that's really good. You're right. I also, SIM cards used to change through phones. And so I had a phone, And then this is when I was just about to graduate high school. And so I had a phone, and I then got a new phone. So my old phone went underneath my bed. My mom needed, her phone broke. Her Nokia dropped from like 1,000 stories, and it actually chipped. So she needed to use an old phone. So she grabbed the phone, she grabbed it, put her phone in, and it went back. All my messages were still on there. And she goes, hey, she was reading through my messages. She goes, I found out about all the times that you were doing these bad things, and I want you to tell me all of them, and I'm going to tell you if you're lying or not. So my mom, very good parenting move. She said, Tuesday in the basement, you're going to sit down on the couch, and you're going to tell me all the times that you lied to me, and I'm going to tell you if you're lying or not, because I know exactly how many times you were lying to me. I think she only knew about 1 or 2. It was a really good parenting move by my mom, and I'm going to use it. But at that time, she caught me because she had full rights to go into my phone and do all these things. So I just don't know, Matt. I'm scared for kids. I'm scared if there was a social media when I was in high school, I probably would not be where I am today. Not because I was doing something terrible, but I did a lot of dumb things. I used to ride behind trucks. I used to do all these things. I used to do things that boys would do, all this stuff. And so I'm afraid, but I don't think that the excuse of, hey, my kids are going to be socially outcast is a good excuse, because I want my kids to be different. I want to be different. It's good to be different. And so, I mean, I don't want to go too much on a tangent. I just did.
You just did. What do you
Sorry,
mean?
but we can't. We're going to cut it off. We're going to cut it off there because we're going to have Kiera on here. We're going to talk about it. I want to talk about what I did with my Instagram. Because like you said, there are positives with Instagrams. Let's say it's like, as a business, it's free marketing. You can get people, show people what's going on. You can
connect with people.
You can connect with people in this podcast. What's up, guys? And you can do stuff like that. You can have conversations. You could promote your business. You can promote your friend's business. You can promote how great a shape you're getting in. You can promote this, that, and whatsoever. So I caught myself living on my cell phone. So when I left here at work, I'd be on my cell phone at home, answering emails, answering calls, answering direct messages from potential clients. And my excuse was, oh, I'm doing it because I'm trying to get clients into the gym. I'm trying to do it because I want to get personal clients. I'm trying to do it because I'm spreading the word about our gym. I can spread the word from our gym when I'm here at the gym. So I took my wife's old phone, and then all I did was charge it, hook it up, and now it's on my Wi-Fi. And now my social media stays here. So I
Good job.
separated my social media, and I can post from my computer. I can check a phone if it's just easier, and that's all here. And when I go home, my phone is only text message, phone calls, and that's it.
Good for you.
It's been fantastic. It's been 12 hours, and it's been the best 12 hours so far. I've already read more.
Good for you.
Because now when I'm sitting places, I'm reading, and I'm not on my phone. I'm not even like... Even I would just pull my phone out and slide it open and click it without even thinking, just scrolling through. And so for me, it's been really great. And so I advise, if you have any old cell phones, put it in a spot. And then if you're using it for work, leave it at your job. If you need to take pictures on your time away, use it on your other phone, take pictures. Then when you get back, it's okay if it's not instantly after the event happens. Maybe it's 12 hours after it happens. Then it's great.
Good for you.
So that's my big Instagram thing.
Separate device is the best. If you don't have a separate device, you can do focus modes, and there's things you can do on your phone to lock it down. I've before set passwords, so my wife has the password kind of stuff when I was trying to break some of these habits. And so I love the separate device. That's like the best, though.
I got to tell
your
you,
brain will now think of your other devices like this is not a phone
this is
device.
not even, I'm like my phone, and it's great. It like keeps me disconnected. So I need to disconnect from my phone, because what I found out is that I think about work constantly. I'm always thinking about ways to promote, ways to get people in here, ways to get the land sharks, the junior land sharks, all these things. Looking at what other people are doing for their businesses to see if my business is like comparison is thief of joy. Like looking at those things to be like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're getting here, we're doing great. Showing people that we're doing something instead of pretending that we're not doing something. But who cares? It just dawned on me. I was like, dude, like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't. And I was like so focused on it. And I'm very thankful that I was doing it. But it's hard because like I'm gonna do this podcast, and it's like, well, I'm gonna promote the podcast, but I can do it at work instead of doing it at home. And so I find that super cool. But
so it sounds like that from the outside, you're kind of letting go a little bit. Now the reading and stuff you're doing, at home, is it like unrelated? Is it like
to work?
Yeah. Because it's like, it's hard, Luke, because
I don't know.
you becoming a better human is also applicable to your work, because a lot of what you do is helping others be better humans. And so I can imagine that's hard to drive that barrier. Maybe you need to read fiction.
No, not worth it. I don't want to waste my time. Like a Harry Potter. Sorry, people.
Yeah, but that might be taking your hands off. You don't have to read Harry Potter. Read Jack Carr. Maybe that's like
Jack Carr
taking your
sounds
hands
great.
off the wheel.
That is like taking my hands off the wheel.
And a lot of times you can get other kind of mental models and the ways of
You're
looking
right.
at stuff.
Yeah, this is like a therapy for me.
We're
Thank
getting
you.
close. Like, I
We
feel
are.
like this is progress.
Yeah, almost to the point where I want to talk about what I want to talk about publicly, but not talk about publicly. But the books that I'm reading. Sorry, guys. I should blow my nose. My mom would be like, blow your nose. The books that I'm currently reading are always going to be related to sports science, stoicism, philosophy.
They don't have to be.
I thoroughly enjoy
Okay, good.
learning about religion. Like I love to dive deep in it. I once read a book about something I didn't even agree with, so that I had an argument to argue people with what they were going to do, because maybe that's my problem. I really like reading some of these things, and for me, it's real great. And that's what I like when I'm at home and I have free time, and I'll watch 55-minute phys when I'm watching physiology, or watching why lactate is a great fuel source, and there's lactate shuttling. I thoroughly enjoy this stuff,
Nerd.
but then it comes second nature. So when I talk to people, it's like a thing that just happens, and I really thoroughly enjoy it. And but you're right, I should do something that is not related. I just don't know what that would be yet. I'm still learning what that could be. I don't think fiction. Jack Carr would be cool. I think I've read. No, I haven't read. My cousin reads it. My brother-in-law reads it. You read it. But yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I went through that study. I'm a big believer in time. Let's get back to emotions. So emotions, I have a hard time with emotions. I'm very an emotional person, where I just go from 0 to 100. And there was a thing in my old job. It was either idle or full bore. That was it. You had those two settings. So you're either at idle.
When are you at idle? Sleeping? I imagine that you're like animated in your sleep.
No, I mean like emotion-wise,
Okay.
like I guess anger. I would say I'm either idle or full bore.
Okay.
It's either like, hey, blah, 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 and it's like, kids, get it, whatever. I lose it. And so my wife we joke about it, but ultimately it's more along the lines of I need to find ways. And when I did talk to someone about it, a mental health specialist, which I advise everybody to go do, which I need to go find a new one, is they had talked about when you start noticing the problems or the things that start to boil up, be aware of those things and calm them down before it gets to that 10. So for me, a lot of times, let's say that I have a nagging injury. For me, that's just an easy one where it's just there. It's not enough to keep me from doing it, but it just is annoying. And so it puts me at like a 7. And then I come home and let's say that my knee kind of hurts. Well, for you, your knee hurts, and it's like, oh, it's so annoying. My knee hurts. And then you come home and your wife said, hey, why don't you take the trash out? Or why don't you do this? Or something that's not a big deal. Like, why don't you do this? And you're like, okay, so then I'm at an 8. And then your kid comes in and you say, hey, can you please put your shoes in where the shoes go? And they're like, and they just ignore you, and then they go. And then your cute little daughter is over there and is like, Daddy, blah, blah, blah. And then
Back to a 5.
no. No. And then she says, I kind of ruined it. But
No, I'm with you.
then you asked her something, and she just ignores you.
I'm with you.
And then you lose it.
Or they scream at each other. Or
Yes, and then she walks by and says, I love you, Daddy. And you're like, oh. And then she sees her brother, and then her brother punches her in the face. And then you lose it on the kid. And then you just went from like an 8 at the door, your wife comes, and then you put out a 10. And then who took the brunt of your anger was this poor child. And it was because of your other stuff going on in your life. And so my advice to people, which I still don't have under control, which is, I guess, my advice to myself, is to acknowledge and understand when you're at an 8 or a 7 and verbalize it. Be like, hey, like Matt, today I'm at a 7. Like I'm at an 8. So your wife knows. So my wife knows, like, hey, like I had a really hard day. And we used to do this with my old job. I'd come home and I'd be like, hey, just to let you know, we're at an 8. And she goes, okay. So she kind of takes some of the workload from you to understand what's going on. Maybe you come home from a day where you're dealing with a bunch of clients, you're doing all this stuff, you're trying to meet these farmers, and you're like, hey, Amanda, I'm at an 8 today. Like, I'm really sorry. So then they know. Then they're aware of it. It's like, okay, I'm going to give them a little bit of grace. I'm going to give them these things. And then same thing, but you got to be, if you do that, then you have to be willing to accept some of the brunt force of like your wife coming home and being like, hey, I'm at a 9. And you're like, what'd you do? Like, I don't, like, did you, like, what do you mean you're at a 9? I've been with you all day. Like, and she goes, no, I'm at a 9. You need to, all right, I got you. Like, it's my turn. Let me take this on. Like, put it on my back. And so you need to have that conversation in that relationship with your wife or your significant other or your friends or people, your business partners, more it's like, hey, I'm not operating at full capacity. But if you say that out loud, then you're already admitting it, you're knowing it, and then you can prepare for it. That would be like the easiest, like most effective way at that moment. I think something from a longer is find out what causes you to get to an 8 and then deal with those things and those triggers and find emotional peace in ways. Maybe it's meditating, maybe it's breathing, maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's going into a room for yourself for 5 minutes and just calming down. And so I think that's a really good one.
That's great advice. Really, really good. Because I was going to ask you, how do you detach like that?
Okay.
And I think being proactive and communicating it at the beginning is a great tool to get ahead of it. To be aware of it, detach, and then get ahead of it.
Well,
And then ask for help.
I pretend that I have it all figured out, but I do that maybe 60% of the time. The other 40% of the time, I just lose my mind.
No, I hear you. But it doesn't matter. It's still effective. It's still good advice, I think.
Yeah, I think it's great advice. I need to take it I'm saying it out loud for myself, ultimately. There was something else that I wanted to talk. I think it talks about in this book, or it talks about it in the other book. When you respond to negative instantly, says to wait. So when something bad happens, let's say business-wise, someone steals your idea and you get frustrated and you just want to yell and scream and be like, what the heck, blah, blah, blah. And then you take a moment, instead of reacting right away, take a day. Be like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. Like, in the grand scheme of things, great. And so I've been trying to do that lately, is when something, even this morning when I was running on the track, we always do these on Tuesdays. So I always do the track reference. I only run on the track one day a week, but every single time we try to do these podcasts, it's the same day that I run the track. So I was on the track in the cool down by myself, and I was like, okay, I'm angry about this one thing. Let's deal with it. Let's figure it out. Cool. Let's think about it. All right, happened. Now move on and talk to whoever you need to talk to upstairs, whatever you got going on in your head, the big guy, the big gal, whatever's up there, a frog, I don't know. And then let it calm yourself down. And then I started thinking like, okay, I'm upset, but I'm running around a track with my own ability, with gloves, clothes, a watch, with people that are like-minded. My life isn't that bad. I drove a truck here. I woke up in a warm house. I started thinking about all those things. I started thinking about already that I was grateful for. And it almost evaporated that negative thought. So to focus on the things that you already have and already are grateful for, it will almost evaporate the thought. So as soon as these thoughts start happening, maybe a trigger might be, okay, as soon as this negative thing happens, okay, hey, I'm going to attack it with, what do I have? And then be like, oh, wow, I have a wonderful wife. I have great kids. I had a truck that got me here. I have shoes to run in. I have a jacket that I'm wearing. I'm wearing a hat that keeps my head warm. Like, okay, like it's not that big of a deal that my shoelace keeps coming untied. You know?
That's really good. This happened to me this week.
Okay.
So I think number one thing you identified there is, once again, detaching, but just being aware of the fact that you're going through this thing happened, even acknowledging the fact that I'm probably justified from the outside, justified in feeling this way. But then something he talks about is like a lot of those feelings are sin, and they're brought on by sin. And so the one that happened to me was jealousy, envy. Something happened to me this week, and it led to this moment of envy and jealousy that was like raging. And what you just said, perfect description, evaporated. Because what I did is I took it, I identified that that's what it was, kind of grabbed it and just threw it up. I felt weightless. And I realized that regardless of the circumstances that are around me, it's all about the mindset and how you're approaching it, probably brainwashing that you've done over the past however many months.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think what you said is great, is like you have to just be aware of it in that moment. Don't hide from it. Take it head on. Acknowledge all of it, like all the feelings, and then just grab it. And like I said, for me, I was able to just kind of throw it away and give it up. I take it from a spiritual point of view, but regardless. I think that's crucial, and your description of evaporate is perfect.
I think that's that word came to me as I was thinking about, okay, well, what is happening
cool.
to this emotion? Oh, it's evaporating because I overcame it with other things. And in the book, he talks about replacing it. And so replacing it with things that gratitude. Something else you said is something I struggle with you said spiritually and letting go and ego is the enemy, all this stuff. And I have a big thought process that a lot of time it's my ego or people's ego that is causing a lot of the frustrations. And as soon as you let your ego go, you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm just egotistical. I'm a narcissist. And secretly, in this other book by Robert Greene, I should do? I should like put these Amazon links at the bottom so people can see them. Yeah. And then do I get like a percentage of it if they buy it from the link?
I don't know. I think that's a thing, but it's a small amounts. But regardless,
hey, every little bit helps.
That's true.
I'm not saying because I think we could do that because we have a lot of stuff. But this book, he talks about. I don't even know what I was talking about. I got distracted by Amazon.
Sorry.
What was I talking about?
Replacing
narcissism.
Yeah, there you
go. Talked about how all of us have different levels of narcissism. And I was like, wow, that's really like good. And started thinking about how we crave attention, even as children. I notice it with my kids, and I notice it with myself. My wife is fantastic. She does not crave attention, which is so nuts to me, and I appreciate that. I love you, Kira. Good, you're the best. So I hope you're listening. If you're not, then someone that knows Kira, please tell her. When I think about it, and I think about, we'll go back to the Instagram thing and the people that are on Instagram that are just saying the things that everyone else is saying. That's not their original idea. They just want to say it. They want to be the first person to repeat what someone else said without any authenticity. That's a form of narcissism. And it's like, hey, look at me, look at my family. I think at one point you said, look how great I am on Instagram. And it's such a fake world that people live in that they only post the things that are positive, or they only post the things that are great. Their trips to their vacations or their trips to wherever. They're not talking about their negative things. And what I really like about our conversations that we have here and the conversations we have with our significant others, the conversations that we have at our little men's Bible study group, is that we talk about real problems and instead of just pretending that we have it all figured out, because no one has it figured out. And I think that's a little bit of narcissism in all of us. When I do something, I crave attention. I'm like seeking it. And I've noticed it since I was a kid. And then they even talked about in this book about how people doing things at a young age in high school and even and I related to a lot of it where I was depressed and I was acting out because I was seeking attention. And I was like, man, like if we just kind of figure that out and be aware of that negative thing that we have and okay, I'm seeking attention. There's got to be other stuff. And this gentleman is talking about how it has to be within. So you got to figure out how to fulfill that cup within yourself. And I think that's going to take a lifelong journey, but I think it's great conversations like this that's going to help you figure out ways to do that. So I just want to kind of touch on the narcissism part, and I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know. How many people, just a question, I see it all the time, and I've done it. So when they go by, I do it when I'm running. You go by a window and you look at yourself, and you're like, okay, that looks good. Or I see people do it all the time in our gyms in the morning, the reflection is there because of the inside light, and they look at themselves in the reflection, and you're like, oh, okay, they're like checking themselves out to make sure they're looking good. And how many times are you walking with, my son does it at our in-laws' house, there's a mirror behind my father-in-law, and that mirror my son looks, when he looks at my grandpa, he can see his reflection, and he's constantly looking at his reflection. So my father-in-law's always like, hey, what are you looking at, buddy? And it's himself. He's looking at himself. And I was thinking, oh, okay, people do that all the time. And I was just curious if there's other people out there that do that and they don't even notice that they do it. When they walk by a storefront and they see their reflection in the mirror, they're like, they put their jacket on, or what do they got going on? So and that's a form of narcissism. And I think there's a story in Greek mythology, right? Or is it in the Bible? Where the guy that looks at himself in the mirror, or looks himself in the reflection of the water. Is that the Bible?
I don't know that story.
Oh, man.
Wherever it's coming from.
Oh, that's a good story if I can figure out where it came from. Someone knows it. I'll find it for the next one. I think it's a Greek one. You would know if it was in the Bible.
I don't know.
I think you would. But yeah, so that's kind of about the narcissism thing. you have a question?
No, obviously it's something built into us that makes you do that.
Insecurities.
It could be.
I
Probably.
Mine's 100% my insecurities. Like you and I have talked about it before. People that assume that if you look a certain way or whatever, you're going to be happy at that point. I can tell you from I listed the BMI, the body fat percentage, the weight, the measurements, the clothes fitting, the amount of abs, muscle features, veins, all that stuff. I've hit those, and sometimes I still don't feel it or see it. I still see the junior high school kid that had the long blonde hair that was super awkward, and I still see that kid. And so a lot of people's body dysmorphia. A lot of people are ashamed to talk about it, and some of the people that are in the best shape of their life still strive for that. And I think that people that are not in the best shape of their life and they look at people that are in the best shape of their life, they're they got this figured out. And it's no, they're still struggling with it. They're still going through all those things. And I think a lot of times you need to do that. And I think it's insecurities, and you got to find out why is that? What causes that insecurity? And that's when you go to a mental health specialist, I think, in that aspect of it.
Well, another tool, but first of all, I appreciate you opening up about that. But let's go back to our winning the war in your mind.
Yeah.
What do you think of his tools he recommended as far as declarations of physically writing out?
Well, affirmations.
Yeah.
Is another. He used biblical things for affirmations.
Yeah.
I just cut you off, man. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But I mean, that was basically my question is, do you see when you were reading that, do you think it's a bunch of BS, or do you think it could be a useful tool?
So he's not the first person I've heard talk. I've seen a lot of mental health people, or not even mental health, sorry, life coaches. I won't put those in the same. A mental health therapist or someone who specializes in that is not a life coach. They're a person that are going to give you tools. There are some life coaches out there that are just people that still live with their parents, and they say that hey, you do these things and you'll be happy. Walk barefoot, take your shirt off, and grow your chest hair. Then you have mental health specialists who I would lead towards this way, right?
Luke is not in the market for a life coach.
I'm not in the market for a life coach. I am in the market for a mental health therapist. But so when I think everybody should be, I believe in them. I think that people who follow the Bible can use the religious affirmations or his declarations that he uses a lot of Bible verses to give him reassurance. Some of the things I have friction with, and we can talk about it in our Bible study about it. But I do think that if you had, let's say you're struggling with drinking, or you're struggling with, I don't know, I keep going back to drinking because I feel like that's a lot of people have that one. And one that I personally had before is that when you go against this obstacle, or it's say going to the gym, just because we're at one. It's I don't want to go to the gym. If you had a sentence that reaffirmed you of the reason why you're going to the gym, I think it would be a good tool to have. I don't think you can rely just on words to motivate you, but I do think it's a good reminder. And they talk about it, not just him, and every other person out there talks about writing it down. And it's not just, and he says it in there, it's not once a day. He goes, sometimes 12 times a day for thousands of times throughout a lifetime. You have to repeat these things. And it's not just once you repeat it once, it's going to fix you. It's constant work. It's a constant battle. And so being aware of that and understanding that you need to do that, I think is a great, if you had a mission statement, core values, hey, I'm a man of my word, and I'm going to do things that make myself better so I can be a better husband, father, and business owner. And if that's the thing that you say, and it's I don't really want to do this. Okay, I'm going to do this because I'm going to be a better husband, father, and business owner. Okay, it aligns with it. It refocuses you on you and it kind of puts you back in line. I think that's great. You can use the Bible verses. You can use your own affirmations. You can use other people's affirmations. I think you really need to think and use your own, and that takes journaling, that takes time, writing your own mission statement, writing why you have this problem or obstacle, and almost coming up with a solution. So it's hey, I need to go run more often. I want to train for a marathon. I need to run. Maybe your solution is find out what your why is, why you want to do it. So then when you're not motivated, you need to remind yourself of the why. There's so many different ways I think that you can do it. I think affirmations are great, but if I keep looking in the mirror and saying, I'm strong, I'm smart, and I'm beautiful, I think that's cool and that's good, but you need to take action. So not just the words, continue to use actions. Actions are reflections of habit, which reflect your character. So if I can judge someone's character based on their habits and their actions. So if your actions are representing your habits and your actions represent your character, I think that's what you need to do. And you can say that you're a good person all you want, but if your actions and your habits are the opposite, you might not be as great as you think you are. Be the person that you say that you're going to be, and not just talk about it, do it. Don't talk about it, be about it. That's my favorite thing. So
Awesome.
does that make sense?
Yep. You have anything else?
Yeah.
What's that?
Stick to your word.
Okay.
That's a big identity that you need to do. If you say something, not just to each other, but to yourself, follow through with it. I think that's the strongest attribute. I struggle with it a lot, but one thing that I have is I commit to myself just as much as I commit to other people. And so if I were to tell you something, I'd be there. But a lot of times we don't hold ourselves to that same accountability, and I think that's where we fall. And I think we need to do that. And I don't know why. I just wanted to say that. Hold yourself to the same standards, and hold your friends, the people you love, the people you care about, to those same standards. And when they falter, say something, because they might not know that they're doing that.
This is a positive effect you've had on me in my life. And I think the key is saying no. A lot of times it's hard to say no. People are people pleasers. They want to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
You gotta say no. And I think that's the way to commit.
I think people pleasing should be a topic for next, because I struggle with that as well.
Let's do it.
Cool. You good?
Yep.
Fins up. No more push-ups, dude. Chest is going to fall.